The marble held the night like a cold breath. Light from the chandelier pooled across the foyer, honey yellow on white stone, the way moonlight lies on ice. Lila Brooks knelt with a rag in one hand and a nickel-sized swirl of clouded blood drying on her thumb. The house hummed its usual music air vents, a distant compresseur, the slow clock over the gallery door. Nothing ever spoke here unless Mr. Mercer paid it to. A small shape slid into the edge of her sight. Pajamas, bare feet, a slight boy holding one ear. Noah Mercer moved like a shadow, reluctant to be seen. He set his palm to the floor, as if trying to catch a vibration the world owed him. The fountain in the atrium coughed once, then poured steady again, thin water over copper. Lila turned the rag, softer voice than breath. "You okay, baby?" He watched her mouth the way he always did, tilted his head, squeezed his ear. "Pain." She pointed to her own ear. A question written in fingers, not words. He blinked hard. His shoulders rose. The kind of flinch you learn when doctors spend years touching you like a puzzle. She lifted the lamp at the base of the stairs, angling it so its brass neck drew a line of light into his ear. The smell of polish and lemon oil mixed with something faintly sweet, dried syrup, child food. Inside, deeper than she liked, a dark gleam, not wax, not anything she'd seen in a human ear. The sight pulled her stomach small. "Hold still," she whispered, even though he could not hear. Maybe words could tug the air calmer. Noah's fingers found her sleeve. For a second he let the weight of his head go toward her. She reached for the safety pin she kept on her apron, the one that kept the pocket from sagging. The metal was warm from her body heat, and it shook in her hand. From the upper landing, a heel clicked. "Two." Then Minnie Butler Richard, precise as a metronome, descending like a verdict. Lila froze. Noah's hand tightened. The pin glinted. A fish scale in lamplight. "What are you doing?" Richard's voice clipped the edges off words. He smelled of aftershave and starch. "Step away from him." "Now, sir." His ear. "You people," he said, and didn't finish, because there was no need. The cut was already made. Noah's breath hitched. Lila put her palm to the tile to steady herself, then to the boy's cheek as slowly as she'd ever done anything. His skin was cool, the way the inside of a wrist is cool. "Just 1 second, she said. "I'll be gentle." Richard moved as if to grab her arm. A shift in the air. Lila leaned the lamp closer. The dark thing inside Noah's ear pulsed. A little shrug, like a drowned seed. She felt the world tilt, memory of her brother in a public clinic, the doctor who never looked at his face. She slid the pin along the ridge without touching skin. The curve of metal found something soft, sticky. Wrong. She lifted, not pulling so much as coaxing. A slip, a weight on the pin, then out, a wet bead, the size of a pea, slumped into her palm. It was blacker than blood, slick and tremoring. The house paused. Noah's mouth open, sound thin as a wire, raw as a scraped knee crossed the space between them. Grace. It wasn't the right name. It was the only one he had for her. Lila went still to keep from breaking. Richard's face fell out of its training. For a breath he looked human. Then he remembered what he is. "What did you do to him?" The fountain sound grew huge in the quiet. Lila's hands shook. Noah blinked at the lamplight as if it had a taste. Footsteps thundered above. Doors, a voice that carried even when soft. Adrian Mercer came into view at the landing in shirt sleeves, eyes sleepless bright. He took the stairs fast. Tee loose, cuff unbuttoned, a man dragged out of control. When he reached the floor, he didn't look at Lila. He looked at the small thing moving in her palm. "What is that?" he said. "I don't know," Lila said, but it was in his ear. Noah turned toward the fountain, toward its steady glitter noise. His throat worked. He tried the shape again. "Duh. It broke in the middle, became wind. Lila felt something inside her break open anyway. Adrian heard it as a threat. He stepped in, towering the way rich men do without meaning to. "Don't touch him," he told Lila, slow enough to be kind, and still not. "If something is wrong with my son, you call me. You don't take pins to him like a what?" Lila said, voice even. She didn't look up from Noah. He was hurting. "Mr. Beacon." "Mercer," Richard said, chin high. She interfered. Reckless behavior from staff. Adrian kept his eyes on Noah. The boy's hands hovered like birds, unsure where to land. He touched his own throat, startled by the vibration inside. He touched Lila's sleeve again, not asking, just anchoring. "What did you say?" Adrian crouched, his voice gentled without his permission. "Noah, what did you say?" Noah licked his lips, tasted the metallic air. "Dad," he said, softer, one syllable safer than two. Adrian's face opened and closed, a strobe of awe and terror. For a second he reached for the boy and stopped, as if the touch might fracture it. He looked at Lila then, truly looked, and something like gratitude flickered. Then fear took it, fear for liability, for headlines, for the shape of power that keeps a house like this standing. "Richard," he said, not looking away from his son, "call Dr. Lang. We're going to St. Augustine." Now. Richard moved to the wall panel. His finger hovered, then punched a code. Somewhere behind the plaster, the security system woke, a discreet chime. Lila felt it more than heard it. She cupped the wet black thing with her other hand, trying not to let it roll. It twitched against her skin, a glossy eyelid of a thing, sightless and stubborn. "Put that down," Richard said, "for disposal. It's evidence." Lila said she didn't know of what. She knew the word had weight. "This is not a court," he said. "This is a home." "It's both," she said, and knew then she was already beyond some line. Adrian held out a hand, palm up. "Not asking? Give it here." Lila looked at Noah. The boy's eyes tracked the little dark motion, as if it were the only moving thing left in the world. She thought of her mother's hand on her scalp, the year heat cut off for 3 days, of the sound a radiator makes when it dies, faint knocking, like a heart against a locked door. She closed her fingers. "I'll bag it," she said. "If you're taking him to a hospital, they'll need to see it intact." Adrian weighed that, the way he measured everything: risk, optics, cost. He nodded once. "Fine, but you don't leave this room with it." Richard's mouth thinned. He unspooled a clear sandwich bag from the drawer by the alarm panel. Everything in this house had a place and a backup. Lila slid the thing in, pressing air out, sealing the top. It tapped the plastic as if it disliked the barrier. Noah flinched at the sound. Lila lowered it, and the boy's shoulders eased by a hair. Sirens were not allowed on the Mercer Street. The ambulance whooshed instead. A long exhale at the gate. Adrian rose and said, "Bring him to the air." And staff appeared. 4 sets of hands. Careful. Choreographed. The choreography of wealthy emergencies. They tried to take the boy from Lila. Noah clung to her sleeve, the way a hand finds rope in water. "It's all right," she whispered. "I'm right here." Adrian saw that, and something that lived under pride winced. "She can ride along," he said to no one in particular. Then, as if the words tasted strange, he added, "For now." They moved as a group toward the front doors. Past the atrium, where the fountain threw silver onto stone, the water sounded louder, like rain on a shallow roof. Noah paused at the edge of its light and listened with his whole body. He smiled, small and frightened and almost new. They didn't see the camera eye tilt above them. They didn't hear the soft motor as the dome lens rolled and found focus in a black room at the back of the house. A red dot woke. Lila felt it, though not the machine exactly. The attention. She lifted her head just enough to catch the smoked glass bubble in the ceiling. Her skin tightened. She shifted the sealed bag into her apron pocket, the plastic whispering against fabric. The thing inside tapped once, like a knuckle on a door. Richard, already a step ahead, looked over his shoulder and saw where her eyes had gone. "Security is for everyone's safety," he said, crisp, especially when staff forget their place. She met his gaze. "Calm isn't the same as small. I remember mine," she said. "Do you remember yours?" Outside, the ambulance lights strobed blue-white against the stone, silent and accusatory. Cold air pushed in when the doors opened. The house exhaled. Adrian guided his son into the night. Lila followed, one hand hovering near the boy's shoulder, the other over the pocket where the bag rode, slick and rebellious. Behind them, the foyer empty. The fountain kept talking to no one. Up above, the camera stayed on, the tiny red eyes steady. Recording. Morning bleached the corridors to bone. The security office smelled like burnt coffee and warm plastic. A low fan grinding in the corner. Monitors stacked 3 high through blue over Richard's cheekbones as he scrubbed the trackpad with 2 fingers. A man polishing facts. 4 seconds, he said. Tap tap. Gone. On the center screen, the foyer replayed in tasteful silence. The chandelier pulsed, staff crossed, time marched, then a splice a hiccup so clean you could miss it if you wanted to. Lila stood with her hands folded, the way you stand in a room that can eat you. A paper waited on the console, first line bolded, incident statement. Richard angled the form toward her. "We prefer these contemporaneous. Prefer isn't require," she said. He smiled like a good blade. "Refusal looks like guilt." She read. The language wore a suit. Unauthorized intervention. Object of unknown origin. Potential harm. Her name came last, as if it had been pulled reluctantly from the list. "Where does the missing part go?" she asked, nodding at the screen. "Glitch," he said. Name of the glitch. He tapped the frame counter. Numbers flicking. Electrical noise. Ms. Brooks. Not every absence is a conspiracy. The fountain feed, lower left, showed water cutting a thin line into its own reflection. The sound didn't travel in here. The room swallowed it on principle. Lila found the rolling red in the corner of each mini window, the cameras dreamless and tireless, and signed where the line meant her to. "Thank you," Richard said. "Cooperation keeps a house running." She slid the pen back with the calm of a person who has learned to move slowly around stress. He slid the document away before the ink dried. Down the hall, a Doorzicht, she held onto the image of the boy's face under lamplight and walked out as if leaving didn't cost. Upstairs, gray light through gauze curtains, Adrian at the window, the city lowing beyond glass like a distant animal. He watched the world without seeing it. Shirt untucked, a man still arguing with the night, Noah perched on a leather ottoman near a sound machine. He didn't know how to fear yet. The device was set to rainforest soft loops of synthetic water and birds. The boy studied with a knotted brow. Every new sound was a foreign country. Noah lifted and dropped the rubber tip of a headphone against his palm, testing the tiny thud. Adrian kept turning to him, helpless to stop. "You're all right," he said. "You're safe." The words felt like furniture he'd bought for display, and now needed to sit on, unsure it would hold. Alma Shaw, the lawyer, had not yet been called. Dr. Lang had not yet arrived. There was a long hour in between when a man can hear himself think if he dares. Adrian walked to his son, knee popping in the quiet. "Does it hurt?" he asked. Noah touched his ear like touching a bruise through a shirt, measuring, not complaining. His eyes said what his mouth didn't yet know how. The world had become loud, and so had he. Adrian turned off the sound machine. The room held its breath, Noah exhaled as if something heavy had been set down. The staff corridor ran cooler, a black line of vents humming overhead. Lila moved in that air, the bagged thing. A slick weight inside her apron pocket, a metronome against her thigh. Nurse stations murmured. Carts left rubber on the tile. Maya Ortiz leaned over a chart 2 doors down from the supply closet, the fluorescent light flattening the lines under her eyes. She had the look of someone who had just lost an argument with a mirror and promised to try again later. When Lila appeared, Maya didn't startle. She had learned that nothing arrived here by surprise. "You shouldn't be in this wing," Maya said. "Housekeeping has its hall." "I'm not housekeeping," Leela said. "I'm what comes after." Maya's gaze clicked to the pocket on the apron. "I'd like someone to look at his ear," Leela said. "Someone who won't talk to a spreadsheet first." Maya's mouth did a private thing. "You understand the ladder here?" "Right. You don't get to skip rungs." Every rung broke where I came from. A monitor beeped 2 rooms down, an arrhythmic chime. Maya pinched the bridge of her nose and looked down the hall. Then back at the pocket. "There are procedures. So follow them," Leela said. "On him, not me. You don't mess with people like him," Maya said, too quietly for pride. "You think they're made of credit cards. They're made of lawyers. People like me," Leela said, "are made of everything nobody paid for." Maya's shoulders sagged a touch, which is how conscience looks when it loses a round and comes back for another. She checked the nurse station. Empty but for a bowl of dead pens. 10 minutes, she said. "No more." She led Lila into the exam room used for family consultations, which meant clean chairs and a box of tissues nobody ever touched. The sink dripped, the kind of slow that makes you crazy if you're alone with it. Maya put on gloves, flipped the lamp, and gestured. "Let me see the bag." Lila placed it on the steel tray, plastic slick in her palm. The thing inside twitched, as if deciding whether to die here or later. Maya held it to the light. Not wax, not insect, something with the arrogance of a lab product and the ugliness of a ditch. "Where did it come from?" she asked without moving her eyes. "Where it shouldn't?" Maya set it down very gently, like that might appease it. "I have to log a foreign body if I see one." "You haven't," Leela said. The sink's drip became a metronome for bad decisions. Maya looked at the clock digital. Green. Lingba. 17. And made a new person out of herself in 3 seconds. "Okay," she said. "Open the register." Lila, confused, reached for the clipboard. Maya pushed a drawer with her hip and revealed a dusty barcode gun. The hospital's way of pretending matter becomes truth when scanned. She aimed it at the bag, beeped a code that wasn't the bag's, but belonged to a training specimen, and wrote down numbers that would get them both through breakfast. "You just broke 3 rules," Leela said. "4, Maya said. "I kept count." She snapped the glove tip from her thumb. "Listen, there's something else." She pulled her phone from her coat, thumbed 3 times, and put it away. "You need to see the security feed from last night, not the one in Richard's office." "How many feeds are there?" "Enough to keep the house honest," Maya said. Then, with a small, bitter smile, "and dishonest. They used the hallway nobody used." Maya's badge worked on a door labeled "Storage," with a printout taped over the original name. The room buzzed with rack servers humming like a hive. The air smelled ionized, like a thunderstorm with paperwork. Maya typed a 7-digit code into a terminal that had no business letting her. "I did a rotation here," she said. "Lang likes cross-training. It keeps debts." On screen, the foyer appeared again, but this time the frame count rolled smooth. No gaps. The missing seconds lived in this machine like a bone behind drywall. Maya scrubbed backward with a precise finger until the clock tucked beneath the image read 0, 2. Shui, Ling Luke. A watermark ghosted the bottom right. SA Vault B. She looked around, then at Lila. We don't download from here, she said. We don't even breathe too loud. People like me, Leela said, learn to hold our breath. Maya slid a thumb drive from her coat. Its case had a hairline crack near the cap. It looked like it had fallen in a parking lot and gotten up by itself. She hesitated, considered a better future, then slotted it in. The machine thunked. Progress bar. A slow river across a gray valley. In the corner, a red light, labeled REC, blinked with the regularity of a heart that had made its peace. Lila pictured the bag on the tray, unattended, smart enough to find a way out. She pictured Richard's smile, clicking shut like a briefcase. She pictured Adrian's hand hovering near his son's shoulder and not quite landing. The hospital keeps shadow backups, Maya said, eyes never leaving the screen. Linens. Lab. Cameras. You can lose one and not lose the rest. Redundancy saves mistakes and protects them, Leela said. Both, Maya said. Systems don't pick sides. People do. The bar inched. 20%, 48%, 76%. Lila felt every number, the way a runner feels her breath by the mailbox, by the fire hydrant, by the stop sign. At 98%, the fan whined louder and her stomach went to her throat. Done. The drive winked a soft green. Maya ejected it like a ritual and curled it into Lila's palm. The plastic felt warm. The warmth felt like danger in a pocket. Keep it off the network. Maya said, air gap your secrets. You didn't get that from me. What did you get from me? Leela asked. Maya's face cracked in a way that had nothing to do with smiles. A reminder I became a doctor, to help people who don't get invited past reception. She wiped the keyboard with a dry wipe, a habit more superstition than sanitation. Now leave. They exited back into the slow, indifferent corridor. A janitor whose name neither of them remembered pushed a mop, water slopping into the tray with a slap. The smell of bleach rose. Clean, only if you didn't know what it covered. Richard rounded the corner with 2 security guards, drafting him like escorts. His eyes found the 2 women, then the pocket on one, then the glance they didn't quite exchange. Ms. Brooks, he said, you're far from your assignment. I go where the spill is, she said. And you? Dr. Ortiz, he said, narrowing. I'd expect better judgment. You'd expect obedience, Maya said. Same thing here, he said. A small laugh leaked from Maya's nose, the kind you hear when someone has finally stopped trying to be liked. Only if you're sitting in your chair. They passed him without brushing. After, a beat of quiet that wasn't friendly. The mop's swish filled it like an old tape. At the end of the hall, a window. Outside, light hit the hospital fountain and broke itself on purpose. Lila stood there, the thumb drive hiding in her fist, and studied the throw of water against stone. Noise without voice, beauty without ears. The glass cooled her forehead when she leaned it there, just long enough to close her eyes and count to 5. When she opened them, she caught her reflection and, in it, the black dome of a ceiling camera behind her, still as a moon with a red star. Recording. She breathed in. She breathed out. Air gap, she whispered. Then she turned, slipped the drive deep into the hem of her apron, where the seam had opened from years of washing, and walked toward the stairs before anyone could decide who she was. The hospital's light was the color of milk poured thin, air vents sighed over glass and chrome, antiseptic crisp as winter apples. In the atrium, a shallow fountain pushed a sheet of water over slate and into a steel grate sound, like a whisper that refused to stop. A small forest of microphones grew at the base of the donor wall. Reporters arranged themselves by height and hunger. Dr. Victor Lang stepped into their view with a sleeve tug that finished the suit and a smile polished for television. "Thank you for coming," he said. His teeth were polite, his eyes were inventory. St. Augustine serves every family with equal care. He didn't need to say which family stood taller. His gaze skipped over the atrium's glass doors, where a woman in a blue apron waited at the rope. The security guard's palm made a careful fence in front of her. "Staff access only," he told her. "I brought a specimen," Leela said. "Foreign body. Removed bedside. You can hand it to triage. It won't make it that far." The guard's cheek twitched. He straightened the gate stanchion like it had misbehaved, and turned his shoulder so she could see how wide it was. Behind him, Lang's voice smoothed a new sentence. "We've assigned our best to this case," he said. "Our only interest is the child's health." The atrium screens rolled footage of families ringing the hospital bell. Chemo finished, charity achieved. Color corrected. The fountain murmured on. Lila's hand stayed in her apron pocket, covering the bag like you cover a candle in wind. A woman in a white coat paused on the mezzanine. Maya Ortiz leaned on the rail and looked down between banners that read, "Compassion is our protocol." She watched the exchange at the rope, the way you watch road work, knowing no one will fix the thing under it. Lang finished his comfort and made for the private elevator, flanked by a communications fellow, counting social media mentions under her breath. His smile dissolved as soon as the camera lights cooled. He tapped the stainless button twice. A man who disliked waiting. "Dr. Lang," someone called. "Comment on the maid's role." "We don't discuss staff," he said without turning, "or rumors." The doors opened. He entered with the specific courtesy of letting no one follow. Down one level. Lab B smelled like formalin, and the kind of cleanliness that makes your tongue go metallic. Everything hummed a little centrifuge, refrigerator. The patience of the building. A tech in purple gloves stood at a bench, reading a requisition with a pen still capped. Lang slipped on his own gloves, flesh tone ghosting his hands. The tech lifted the jar, a screw-top specimen cup with a hand label, "Black Object," written twice, once avoided, and again, harder. The thing inside hung like a rainforest seed in clear medium. When the jar tipped, it rolled and settled, as if it knew center, source. Lang said. The tech looked at the form he wasn't sure he should read. Left external auditory canal. At home removal. At home, Lang repeated, like a joke for one. Chain. I received from triage at 09. Cherie. Jenna at security logged intake. Nocial ID. The tech's face tried not to be present. Lang glanced at the clock. 09. Should see. 26 then. At the lab, camera's small red diode. We'll document, then we'll dispose. It's likely artifact. Contamination from environment or handling. A story looking for a microscope. He took the jar, studied the shimmer, and saw the press conference already cut together. Calm doctor. Concerned father. Miracle downgraded to misunderstanding. He set the jar under the lab scope. The monitor bloomed with detail, a welted surface like fish scale, a hint of fibers, some crystalline flecks that could be anything. Curiosity touched him, that old private spark, and then prudence kicked it aside. Document surface, not composition, he said. We don't need to name it to know it's nothing. The tech adjusted focus. There's movement, contraction. Lang said, fluid ripple. Looks live. So do lots of dead things. Lang said, get me a disposal tube. On the mezzanine, Maya left the rail. She moved through staff stairs that smelled like dust and old gum and arrived at Lab B's glass. From the hallway you saw everything and nothing. Her badge didn't open this door. A window did. Inside, Lang held the jar like a man weighing an apple for bruises. He signaled to the computer. The tech clicked through a menu. Specimen other. The cursor blinked above diagnosis. Unknown. Lang took the keyboard himself and typed extraneous material, consistent with environmental contaminant. He kept his voice even as he dictated findings, non-diagnostic. Action, destroy. Reason, infection control. The tech hesitated, eyes on the camera in the ceiling. We need director authorization for immediate destruction. Lang pointed his chin at the monitor. You're looking at it. He pressed his thumb to the biometric pad under the keyboard. The screen blinked, then accepted the print with a chime. Order authorized VL01. Lingzhou. Arshisi. Shisan. Maya's stomach went tight. The green digits wrote themselves into her. She looked at the hallway clock and then at the lab screen and fixed both times like you fix a memory that might be argued with. Lang picked up a disposal tube and unscrewed the lid with soft clicks. Open, he said. The tech unscrewed the specimen jar with both hands, as if it might bite. The smell, when it came, was faintly sweet. Not rot, not hospital, something from a place with dirt floor and heat. Now, Lang said. The tech stared a half-breath too long. The thing in the jar pulsed once, slow and tired. Doctor, he said, a story ends when you stop telling it. Lang said, Pour. Maya hit the intercom before she could remember. She shouldn't. Hold, she said. Her voice arrived in the room tinny. A ghost caught in a can. Two heads snapped toward the glass. She held up her badge like it meant authority, and not plastic. Chain of custody is incomplete. Lang's smile returned. Smaller, private. Dr. Ortiz, he said to the intercom, we're preventing contamination. You're erasing evidence. She said. Of what? He asked. Genuinely curious. We don't know yet, she said. That's why we keep it. Lang considered the window, found his own reflection layered over Maya's face, and liked that picture better. We'll keep the log, he said, and nodded to the tech. The jar tipped. The thing slid one patient curl and dropped into the tube with a sound too soft to be heard. The tech sealed the lid and turned to the biohazard bin. The computer recorded, disposed 09, Arsha Wu, Ling Yi. Maya stepped back from the glass as if the room had shoved her. The hallway air tasted like copper pennies. She watched Lang peel off his gloves with a twitch, turn to the computer, and type a note with his left index finger. Destroyed per infection control protocol. He signed with his initials in a blue field, the letters too close together to be friendly. A lab assistant wheeled a cart between them, breaking the sightline. When Maya looked again, Lang was already halfway to the door. She ducked into the recess by the elevator bank. The doors opened on the soundproof hush that makes hospitals feel like underwater. Lang stepped in. The elevator closed. She saw herself in the mirrored steel for a single second young, tired. Hair escaped. Someone who had just watched a small truth drown. The family consultation room had 2 chairs and a plant built not to die. Lila sat nearest the door, bag in her pocket now filled with air and stubbornness. She had no appointment. She had a reason instead. Maya entered with a sudden calm, the kind you put on when your hands shake. She took the seat without ceremony. He destroyed it, Maya said. Logged? Leela asked. Yes, Maya said. Authorized by his thumb, time on the file reads 09. Arsha Sid. Shusan. Disposal 09. Arsha Wu. Ling Yi. Lila let those numbers settle. So it exists, she said softly. Now in a computer that says it doesn't. Maya looked at her, sharp for a second. You brought your own copy of last night's feed. Yes, hide it well, Maya said. Don't store in your phone. Don't email. Don't cloud. Air gap, Leela said. Maya almost smiled. Good student. In the hallway, a small boy's laugh, thin, surprised, cut through the noise like a bright string. Both women still. Is that him? Maya asked. Leela didn't answer. She knew the shape of that laugh already, the way it landed like a bird testing a new branch. Maya stood. Lang will move fast, she said. He'll shift the story before the ink dries on the log. How fast? Leela asked. He already started. Maya opened the door and they stepped into the corridor. Adrian's publicist passed with a tablet held like a shield, murmuring, "Can we say temporarily restored? It polls better." A nurse exchanged charts with another nurse without looking at either. A volunteer pushed a book cart. Paperbacks wobbling. The fountain downstairs pushed its constant veil over stone. Water, Maid, changed shape every second, and never admitted it. They reached a glass panel that looked onto the atrium. Lang crossed below, walking his calm walk. He stopped where the light hit him most kindly and shook a donor's hand. A camera operator framed the handshake like an oath. Maya's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She didn't pick up. She watched Lang instead. Compassion is our protocol, Lila read on the banner, as if it were a spell no one believed in. Maya tapped the glass with one fingernail, a sound only she heard. Compassion doesn't sign, she said. Someone does. They stood there, a count of 5. The atrium sound softened to a hush you had to lean into. The hospital continued its chores around them with the serenity of a ship that trusts the ocean. Come back at midnight, Maya said, still watching the man below. When the building thins, what then? We'll go where protocols sleep. Lila nodded. She shifted her weight, felt the seam of her apron against her thigh, and the minute plastic edge tucked inside it warm from her body, cold with its own memory. The fountain's curtain shivered in the air conditioning, breaking into beads. One fell out of line, caught light, and vanished before it hit the grate. At 01:03, the building thinned. The visitors were gone. The volunteer cart shelved. Air handlers sang their low hymn. A cleaning machine droned down an empty hall like a ship crossing dark water. Maya swiped her badge at the record's door. Red? She tried again, slower, like patience mattered to electronics. Red. Different reader. She whispered. They swapped it. Lila stood with her back to the wall. The seam of her apron scratched her thigh, where the hidden thumb drive lived. She could feel her own pulse in that fabric. The corridor smelled of lemon disinfectant and hot plastic. Overhead, a sprinkler head glinted like a watchful eye. Try the lab stair, Leela said. Maya nodded. They moved. No conversation. Shoes made controlled sounds, the way you walk in houses that can punish you. At the stairwell door, the badge reader blinked green on the second pass. Inside, cooler air. Concrete steps. A faint drip from an old valve somewhere. Water tapping steel in a rhythm. The building forgot to fix. Basement, Maya said. They descended. At B1, the hall opened onto a row of locked rooms with labels that told half-truths. Storage, files, archive. A camera dome hovered in the corner, its red LED not quite asleep. Maya stopped at archive. This one, she stripped a latex glove from her pocket, pulled it on, and fished a keycard envelope from under the hall fire extinguisher. I did a rotation here, she said, breath thin. I hid insurance. Smart, Leela said. The door clicked. They entered a room cooler than any church. The smell was paper and dust, and the iron tang of toner. Racks of gray mobile shelves filled the space, each with crank handles like ship wheels. Maya turned one. The shelves opened, A canyon of files, appearing with a gentle shudder. Funding ledgers are physical backups, Maya said. They say it's for audits. For forgetting, Leela said. Maya stepped into the aisle, the light strip making her hair a brighter black. She scanned labels with quick, hungry eyes. SA Fund 2019-2020. Where are you? She slid a box free. Its side read, SA Fund 2022 Q3 Q4. Restricted. She set it on a rolling stool. The cardboard burned cold into her palm. She lifted the lid. The top folder wore a red stripe. Special programs. Beneath it, a stack of printouts, tabs marked with medical acronyms and legalese that felt like dried skin in the mouth. Maya handed Lila a pair of nitrile gloves. Don't leave oil. Lila pulled them on. The gloves snapped soft. She took the first sheet. Maintain diagnosis for continued funding approval. Internal guidance. Effective date. July 15th. Scope. Pediatric chronic impairment cohort. We read, Maya said, voice flat as the page. We don't absorb. You copy. I return. Lila nodded. She slid out her phone, hesitated, then put it back. Air gap. She lifted the lid on the copy machine in the corner, half expecting it to shout. It hummed awake like a polite animal. Maya checked the door. Close it, she said. We control light. Lila fed the page. The copier scanned, bar light, gliding like a slow green river. The machine spat out a sheet with grit, where toner sat thick on jargon. She stacked copies on the stool, aligning edges by instinct. Maya flipped to a ledger spreadsheet. Columns bristled. Grant ID, disbursement, diagnostic code, modifier. She tapped a line with a gloved finger. There. Noah Mercer Diag. H90. SAN. Sensorineural hearing loss. Bilateral. Modifier. MT. Grant. Saped Cron 54. Disbursed. $1,200,000. Status. Active. MT. Leela said. Maintain. Looks like an order, Maya said, masquerading as billing. They copied, page after page, each sheet hot when it landed. Lila kept her gloved fingers under the lip of the tray to catch. Before paper fell, the machine's fan ticked louder as if asking for relief. She slowed the run. Timing mattered here. Maya set the ledger aside and dug deeper. A memo printed on thick stock. Language guidance for external communication. She read a line aloud. Use. Temporary fluctuation. Not. Improvement. Avoid. Restored. Lila took it from her. Copied. Placed it under the done stack. A rhythm built. Lift. Set. Scan. Retrieve. Stack. Her body remembered factories she'd never worked in. Her mother had taught her repetition as a kind of prayer. From the hall, a soft shoe on tile, a pause. Then another. Maya froze mid-page, hand hovering like a conductor who lost her place. The door opened 3 inches. Then all the way, Pike stood in the gap, tea loosened, jacket off. A bruise darkening at his collarbone where a radio had knocked earlier. He smelled like coffee and cold air. His eyes went to the copier, to the gloves, to the open box. Don't, he said. Maya set both hands down where he could see them. Close the door, she said. He stepped in without closing it. You'll ruin everything, define everything. Leela said. My job, he said. His voice didn't carry the threat it should. Yours. This place. Maya took a breath that once belonged to a different person. We're documenting fraudulent billing directives, she said. We're preserving chain of custody for a case that will exist in 6 hours. Pike looked at the ceiling camera, then at the small black square above the door motion sensor. not a lens. You triggered an alarm when you swipe, he said. That reader reports to the director's console. How long? Leela asked. Depends who's awake, he said. Lang is a morning monster. Might be at his desk already. The copy machine purred a sheet out as if to make the room own its argument. Pike shut the door with 2 fingers. Silence gathered. He crossed to the wall and popped a panel no one else had seen. Flicked a toggle. The camera diode in the corner went dark like a candle pinched. Maya stared. You just broke an oath. I kept the right one, he said. He moved to the copier. Hit the face-down button to clear the glowing count. You have 5 minutes, he said. You never saw me. Why? Leela asked. He thumbed the bruise at his collarbone. Winced. Because my sister's kid got turned away here for not fitting a grant. He said, because all my cameras know how to look. I want to know how to see. Maya's throat tightened. She took a pen from her coat and wrote on the margin of the memo, retrieved 01. Sherrar, Ortiz, Brooks. She slid the page into the copy tray. We need metadata, she said. Notations. Dates. Initials. Use the stamp, Pike said, already in motion. He yanked open drawers until he found a rubber stamp. Ink pad dry as old bread. He shook the bottle, popped the cap with his thumb, flooded the pad. Evidence received. He read, the letters backward in rubber. We'll improvise. He stamped the corner of each copy. He signed P. Pike under the red stripe, then handed the pen to Lila. She signed L. Brooks in tidy block letters she hadn't used since school. Maya added M. Ortiz beside the time. The signatures looked like 3 hands reaching across a river. Maya flipped through the box faster now, taking only what mattered. The ledger pages with MNT modifiers. The memo on email printout. Ensure diagnostic codes remain consistent through Q4. Fluctuation narratives hurt continuity. Metrics. Take the header, Maya said. Print shows server path. Screen grab is better. Pike said, but we're analog tonight. They copied. Lila stacked. Pike watched the hall through the narrow rectangle of reinforced glass. Breath slow. Shoulders square like someone who decided to take a punishment later. The building hummed louder, or else they heard it because they finally stopped pretending it was normal. 2 minutes, he said. Maya slid a thin booklet from the bottom of the box. Vendor contract, she said. Pilot program for auditory implants, non-FDA. She flipped to a page with a hand-drawn star. There, outcomes to be reported as non-responsive, where clinically ambiguous. Messaging templates attached. She set it on the glass. The copier light ran its patient blue. The paper came out smelling warm and faintly like oil. Lila pressed the stamp, a small thump each time, like a heartbeat learned by hand. Time, Pike said. Maya closed the box, aligning the edges, smoothing the label with her gloved palm, as if tucking a child back into a lie. She slid it into its slot between SAFUND2022Q2 and SAFUND2023Q1. The canyon closed with a crank. The shelves whispered shut. Pike flicked the hidden switch. The camera's red eye returned like a tiny sunrise. He wiped the stamp and tucked it crooked where he'd found it. Walk out, he said. Not fast, not slow. They opened the door. Cool hall. The drip from the valve went on. Unbothered by ethics, they moved to the stairwell. Pike peeled off toward security, like a man who needed to be somewhere else at exactly this minute. At the landing, Lila paused. She looked down through the narrow stairwell glass to the basement corridor below. A small monitor glowed just inside the security office, angled to catch the corner of the archive hall. On its screen, a banner blinked in calm. Bureaucratic blue. Unauthorized access detected. Archive. Alerting. Director Lang. Lingy, Sursan, Sushati. Maya saw it too. The light flickered over her face, a low tide draining. How long to the elevator? Leela asked. Longer than we have. Maya said. They climbed anyway, counting steps because numbers were the only thing that stayed true. The stairwell air tasted like pennies again. Lila felt the copies under her arm. Warm and sure. She felt the thumb drive in her hem. She felt the building wake behind them. Protocols stretching like a cat. At 01:15 a floor vent kicked on, and the draft rose up the stair. Like a person, somewhere, far above, the fountain switched to its night cycle. Water thinned, the sheet breaking into lines. The sound was softer. It still would not stop. By noon, the city had a new toy. Headlines snapped like flags on a windy day. Maid's Miracle ran above a smiling anchor with lashes like helicopter blades. A rival station went sober. Unlicensed intervention alleged. Talk radio converted outrage into heat. Lila watched from a bolted steel chair in the break room. The TV hung high in a corner, as if the house wanted distance from its own reflection. The refrigerator rattled. Someone had left coffee burning to tar. The anchor's smile sharpened. Is it a miracle? She asked the panel, or manipulation? A man in a golf shirt said, we can't have staff poking children with pins. A woman with pearls breathed compassion. We must protect families. Lila's phone throbbed in her pocket. Numbers she didn't know filling the call log like mold. The station Chiron pasted her last name wrong and kept it there. A meme used her photo from 10 years earlier when she'd organized a diaper drive. Tense jaw and corner store fluorescent, making her look harder, colder, other. She clicked the TV off. The sudden quiet revealed the building's many small griefs vent buzz, fluorescent hum, a vending coil shivering before it gave up a stale chip. She breathed to the bottom of her lungs and found only the metallic taste of fear. In the hallway, a volunteer pushed past with a clipboard and didn't see her. You could be invisible and still be blamed for the light not working. The nurse from nights, Jenna, leaned in the doorway with a paper cup. They got your first name wrong, she said, a kindness disguised as news. They got everything wrong. Leela said. Jenna stepped into the room, footsteps squeaking. PR's coming hard. She said, they've got templates. She took a sip, grimaced, heard them say, fluctuation narrative twice. Is that like rain? Leela asked. Or like Lee's. Jenna's mouth did that twist nurses learn when humor is the only painkiller within scope. Both. She checked her watch. Security's looking for you. Which kind? All kinds. Yenna said. You might want to leave by the east stair. I work here. Leela said. Not today. Yenna said. Outside, the hospital courtyard had gathered signs. Protect patients, not profits scrawled in ballpoint. Do no harm printed on stiff board. Listen to her in a child's cursive, marker bleeding at the loops. Counter-protesters banged a saucepan, chant messy and mean. A college kid with a lav mic approached strangers and asked, should maids perform medicine? Then cut the answers to fit their sponsor. Lila pulled her hood up. The January light sharpened everything, the edges of buildings, the edge on people. A woman across the street regarded her over a stroller, as if trouble gave off a smell. Lila measured herself like an X-ray. Pockets, zipper, hands. Hands were safe. Hands worked. She didn't see Adrian until he was beside her. Collar up, hair uncombed in a way money tries to hide and can't. Cameras turned toward him like sunflowers. He ignored them. We need to talk, he said. I'm late for not getting fired, she said. He flinched at that, then tried again. You had no right. You had every right, she said, and watched the words land. And you let him suffer. The wind threaded past, bringing a sharp smell fryer oil from the cafeteria. Exhaust. Winter dust. He swallowed. You think I wanted this? I think you wanted control. She said, it looks different than care. Say that again, he said. Low. Don't make me, she said. Lower. He glanced at the signs. His name sprayed wrong in 3 places and right in one. His thumb rubbed the seam of his glove like a worry bead. What did you take from his ear? I don't know, she said. It's gone. Destroyed. Then this doesn't go anywhere, he said. Absurd. Perfumed with panic. It goes everywhere, she said, because he said a word. Their eyes hit and hung there, too much unsaid to pass. A reporter jogged over. Mike lifted. Mr. Mercer, sir, can we? Adrian stepped between Lila and the camera in reflex. The bodyguard of a moment he hadn't earned. Not now, he said. The reporter beamed. That's a later. Right. He didn't answer. He looked at Lila's hood, the threadbare edge, where fingers had worried it smooth. Where are you staying? Where I'm allowed, she said. I'll get you a hotel. Can your name get me a face? She said, because that's the part I keep losing. He breathed as if he might say sorry and then didn't. The fountain behind them lifted water into air with municipal patience. Noah watched it from a bench under a young maple, hat crooked, ears bare. Eli, the speech therapist, sat beside him with a tablet and a bag of toy animals. Lila's body moved without consulting her pride. She crossed to the bench and crouched. Noah's eyes hit her and lit. Hi, she said, careful as a step on ice. He touched his ear. Then the space between them like testing invisible string. Eli held up the tablet. It booped a soft chime. Say water, he said. He had a teacher's warmth and a coach's impatience. Noah stared at the fountain. The water made a curtain that trembled, then healed itself. Trembled, then healed. He opened his mouth. Nothing came. His jaw throbbed. He blinked too fast and looked at the toy cow instead. Relief in its dumb face. Sound is a muscle, Eli said. We build it. Noah set the cow on the bench. He leaned as if listening has weight. Somewhere above them, a helicopter shrugged the air. Try again, Eli said. Gentle this time. Noah's throat moved. A shape formed and tore. Small panic rose like blush. He clapped his hands over his ears, eyes filling before tears. Hey, Leela said. She put her palm in the air. Not touching. Breathe with me. He watched her mouth. She exaggerated the inhale. Slow. Belly big. Then out. Like blowing birthday smoke away. He matched her. A beat late. Then closer. Eli lowered the tablet. Again. Leela said. In. Out. Noah's shoulders dropped a half-inch. The fountain's rush steadied like rain heard from under a porch. The hospital buzz laid down under that rhythm. Water, Leela said. She didn't push. She offered. Noah formed it. The W got lost. The T scraped. The R ghosted. The second syllable made it to shore. Tur, he said, terrified of his own noise. It counts, Eli said, smiling real. Adrian stood there, stunned like a man who found his childhood home, still standing after a fire. He took one step, then two, stopped, rubbed his face with his glove, and turned away to keep some promise to himself no one else had believed. Across the courtyard, a smartphone rose. The red circle blinked. Voiceover came cheap. Rich kid speaks after Maid stunt. The angle erased hand, breath, the tender work of small sounds. It kept only the miracle and the debt. By late afternoon, a blogger had found Lila's address from a donation link she once shared for hurricane relief. A woman in a fleece vest knocked on the door of Lila's rooming house and asked, friendly as poison, "Do you feel responsible?" The landlady texted Lila a photo of the hallway crowded with curiosity, and then a short message. "I can't have this. Sorry." A second text with a key emoji and a neutral face followed. Lila stood under a stairwell window and read the messages twice because anger makes words change. She pictured her one suitcase, two dresses, three shirts, a photo of her mother tucked into the slipper, enough to be a person and nothing to win a war. Hands, she thought, hands again. She found a church she used to attend on holidays and asked the secretary about the basement cots. The woman flicked a glance at the TV on her desk, where Lila's face hovered under a lower third labeled "Untrained." "We're full," she said, apologies stacked neat as bulletins. "Try the shelter on 5th. "Is there a list?" Leela asked. "There's always a list," the woman said, and returned to her typing with efficient grace. Outside, the wind had picked up, coaxing grit across the sidewalk. Lila tucked her chin and walked toward the bus stop. At the corner, two teenagers argued about her in front of her as if she were a mascot. "She's a hero," one said. "She's reckless," the other answered. Both sounded certain because youth is a kind of funding. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She let it go. Buzz. She ignored it. The screen filled with a text from an address she now recognized by structure, if not by name numbers, aligned like someone who liked order. "They're erasing everything. Meet me at midnight." She looked up at the sky. It had the flat, low color that made city light bounce back down. The bus announced itself with squeal and heat. She stepped on, paid, and found a seat by the rear door, where Escape lived. A baby cried 2 rows up. The mother stood, jostled, and swayed with the bus like a dancer. Lila, out of habit, reached to steady the stroller as the driver took a turn too hard. Their hands touched. The mother looked measured, chose, and said, "Thanks." Not everyone read the same news. A teenage boy across the aisle watched Lila with impolite interest. "You the maid?" he asked, because teenagers don't know how to hide the sharp things yet. "Sometimes," she said. He digested that, nodded once, put his headphones back on. The tinny leak of his music made a weak, defiant rain. At the hospital, Noah slept under a white blanket with a knitted border someone's grandmother had made to feel useful. Adrian sat in the dim beside him, phone face down. 2 messages from his board chair glowing under the black glass. "We need a plan. Call me." He didn't. He reached out and touched his son's hair with 2 fingers. A man who had spent years paying experts and forgot how to pet. The fountain outside shut off for the night. The quiet it left wasn't peace. It was the pause between beats when the heart remembers it could stop. Lila's phone buzzed once more as the bus hissed at 12th Street. The text repeated like a drum line. Midnight. By late afternoon, the hospital began to glitter. Screens rolled into the atrium on chrome stands. A lectern appeared, as if the building had grown a beak. Techs unspooled cables that remembered other speeches. The air smelled of hot dust from lights warming up. Coffee burnt down to the bitter. 45 minutes. Adrian stood in a side conference room with blinds drawn, and his jaw tight enough to hurt. Alma Shaw slid a legal pad onto the table with the smooth economy of someone who needed nothing extra. Her suit was dark, her hair back, her pen already uncapped. "We go visual," Alma said. 3 exhibits. Simple, irrefutable. Adrian nodded, not trusting his voice. She numbered down the pad. 1. Audit log screenshot of VL01 authorization. We show the timestamp. 2. Policy dots. Maintain diagnosis language. We frame it as internal guidance, not medicine. 3. Video segment with audio of "Shut that off." Adrian blinked. "We have the audio." "We will," Alma said. He exhaled through his nose. A practiced businessman refusing a prayer. They'll cut the feed. They can try, she said. We preload thumb drives. She handed him a clear sleeve with 3 labeled USB, X1, X2, X3. Each wore a white sticker in her tidy hand. One goes into the lectern laptop, one into the overflow screen, one you keep in your pocket. Adrian weighed them, surprised at how little proof weighed. Lang watched setup from the mezzanine, hands in his pockets. A benign host. PR hovered, murmuring into an earpiece. A comms manager whispered, hashtags are even, we can swing undecided if we control the frame. We will, Lang said. A nurse walked by with a cart and didn't look at him. He made note of that, and then chose to forget it. In the staff stairwell, the concrete smelled of damp, and the last cigarette somebody shouldn't have smoked. Lila sat on the step, hoodie up, the seam of her apron tickling her thigh where the hidden drive lived. Pike descended 3 flights without touching the rail. You're late, he said. By design, she said. He offered a small black case, the size of a deck of cards. From the vault, back upstream, foyer cam, includes the missing seconds. She didn't move to take it. How deep did you go? He shrugged one shoulder. The bruise at his collarbone had spread green. Deep enough. Copies clean. Shah 256 on the back. He had written 32 paired characters on masking tape. Small and careful. Lila read the hash like a prayer without meaning and nodded. Chain. Better than most, he said. Me to you. Right now. No stops. He held out a Sharpie. She signed the case. He signed under her name. The pen bled a little on the plastic. You'll need a lawyer, she said. Already do, he said. She told me to stop. I didn't. They stood in the stairwell quiet. A vent kicked on and pushed cool over their faces. Thank you, she said. Make it worth it, he said. He looked like he wanted to say something else. Then didn't. Go. Use the east service door. Fewer eyes. Maya ghosted into the conference room with an envelope under her coat. She handed it to Alma, like contraband at a bus stop. Language guidance. Ledger pages. Email header. Maya said. Copy as stamped. Times in upper right. Alma fanned the pages, looked at one corner, and smiled without showing teeth. Good work, she said. You wrote the retrieval. Ling-yi. Shirar. Maya said. We were brief. Alma slid the envelope into her satchel, then looked at Maya's badge. You know they'll come for you. They always do. Maya said. She touched the edge of the table like it could pass courage up through wood. But not first. A knock. The door opened before permission. Doctor. Victor Lang entered with a wallet smile and a smell of good soap. The PR woman hovered just outside, pretending to check a list. Mr. Mercer, Lang said. Ms. Shaw. He placed a hand on a chair back and didn't sit. We all want what's best. Alma's pen hovered above her pad. What do you want? Dr. Lang. A future in which this institution can continue to serve, he said. And we'd prefer not to litigate it in public. Then don't, Alma said. Lang looked at Adrian. Not the lawyer. Your board called, he said. They're nervous about volatility. A measured statement will calm the water. Adrian watched his own fingers, how they trembled, how he stilled them against the tabletop. Define. Measured. We acknowledge a temporary fluctuation, Lang said smoothly. We celebrate hope. We pledge further study. We avoid blame. Blame is a diagnosis too, Alma said. Lang's smile pinched. Ms. Shaw, a mutual solution exists. Advisory boards, foundations, chairs to endow. Goodwill survives public storms. This isn't weather, Alma said. It's a choice. Lang's gaze cooled a degree. He returned to Adrian as to a country with a higher GDP. I can recommend you for our philanthropic council, he said. Influence on policy. It's an elegant way to do good. Adrian thought of the camera's red dot at home. Patience, He thought of Noah breathing with Lila's hand like a metronome. He tried on the old suit of control and found it too tight. "No," he said. Lang held the moment like a glass he could put down without spill. "You're under Ziga," he said. "Your son is frightened. Your reputation tilts. Take the rope I'm offering." "I'm under oath," Adrian said. Lang's eyes narrowed a hair. "Whose oath?" "My own," Adrian said. Alma didn't smile, but something in her posture reset. Lang took a small breath through his nose, then let it out perfectly evenly. "We'll proceed," he said, and left as if the room had lost its temperature. Wheel rolled a laptop up to the lectern. A tech opened the lid and plugged in an HDMI as tenderly as inserting an IV. The screen threw a desktop onto the wall, a tropical island you'd never visit. Alma stepped in. "Remove Wi-Fi," she said. The tech blinked. "We need it for the stream." "You need it for sabotage," she said. "Run local. Hardline video, if you must. And give me a second machine. Off network." He slid her a second laptop from a padded sleeve. She checked ports with an efficiency that made the tech blush. "Also," Alma said, "kill autocorrect." He stared. For the universe," she said. "Trust me." In a tiny chapel off the atrium, Lila sat in the last row, so the exit would be near. The room smelled like dust and candle wax that never gets used. She held the black case in both hands. It warmed under her skin. A woman of 70 lit a votive with the focus of a surgeon. The flame shivered, then stood. Lila let herself listen to the building. Wheels, vents, voices in rehearsal outside. She put the case into the hem pocket and pressed the seam shut with 2 quick stitches she made with a travel kit's needle and a thread from her cuff. Each pierce felt like counting. "You can't sew everything closed," she told herself under breath, then got up anyway. Maya checked her phone. Unknown number again. She slid it silent. She saw Pike at the back of the atrium, jacket on, eyes roving. He looked like a man saying goodbye to a job while standing inside it. "You good?" she asked when their paths crossed. "No," he said. "Do it anyway." Reporters massed. Microphones nosed upward like curious animals. The fountain ran louder as if it had auditioned. The donor wall glowed a warm fake gold. Adrian took his spot behind the lectern. Alma at his right. Maya a step back from the rope. Lila in the second row behind a stroller. Lang stood to one side with PR, smile bright, hands still. Alma placed EX1 on the lectern. She leaned toward the tech. "On my quay," she said. "Not before." He nodded, wide-eyed. The way interns nod in movies before bad things happen. Lang leaned toward the hospital's comms manager. "Cut the HDMI if he goes off script," he said softly. Then Stahl. "We'll call it a technical issue." She hesitated. "That's aggressive." "It's infection control," he said, and meant something larger. Adrian looked at the faces. He found Lila by the stroller, chin high. He found Noah's therapist with a hand on the boy's shoulder. He found Lang, perfect as a brochure. He touched the pocket where the third USB waited. He had never carried anything that mattered this little and this much. "Thank you for being here," he began. His voice surprised him by working. "Yesterday my son spoke for the first time." Cameras clicked like hail on tin. Alma slid EX1 into the side port. The wall screen filled with the audit log. Green letters on gray. Order authorized. VL01. Lingzhou. Arshasit. Shursan. Action. Dispose specimen. A murmur chased itself across the room. Adrian stayed with his script and left it when he needed. This, he pointed, is the moment the hospital destroyed what it could have studied. The HDMI blinked. The screen went black-blue. A hospital logo floated up with a chime. The tech flinched like he'd been slapped. Alma didn't blink. She moved to the second laptop and plugged EX1 into it, then into the overflow screen. The image jumped alive on that monitor instead. Reporters pivoted like birds. "We prepared for weather," she said into the mic, and killed the house feed with a flick. She ran the overflow screen local. It glowed obstinate. Lang's smile tightened. He signaled to comms. Hands flew. An apology slide appeared on the main screen. "Technical difficulties. Please stand by." The overflow screen kept its calm green truth. Adrian breathed. "Exhibit 2, he said. Alma swapped drives. The policy doc filled the overflow screen. The header read, "Maintain diagnosis for continued funding approval." Stamped, Lingi, Dodici, Ortiz. Brooks' evidence received. Lang stepped forward. Palms gentlemanly. "Unverified copies," he said. "Anyone can type a memo." Alma tapped the stamp. "Anyone can stamp," she said, "but not everyone signs." Maya felt her throat click. She hadn't expected to see her name that big. Pike stood taller at the back, as if a weight had shifted from the inside to the outside where the air could handle it. "Exhibit 3, Adrian said, and looked at Lila. She rose and walked to the side platform, hands steady by force. She set the black case on the table like placing a small animal into the wild. "A backup," she said. "From a camera that doesn't glitch." A tech reached for it. Lila held his wrist a half-second and met his eyes. "Don't connect to Wi-Fi," she said. He nodded. Throat working. He slid the drive in. The overflow screen showed the foyer. The timestamp rolled smooth. The missing seconds breathed back. Lang's voice came low and tired through the speakers. Unpracticed. The real man wearing the suit. "Shut that off," he said. "Now." The room did not breathe. Lang opened his mouth, closed it, found the mic with 2 fingers and pinched. "This is being misinterpreted," he said. The fountain behind the lectern threw water as if cheering. Microphones leaned in. Lang looked at the corner camera as if it had betrayed him, and then remembered they all did. Eventually, he smoothed his tie, curving his mouth back into something polite. He stepped to the lectern and smiled at the crowd like old friends at a wake. "Let's give them a show," he said. The atrium heat rose 2 degrees. Cameras breathed. People leaned forward the way wheat leans before storm. Lang's smile held like lacquer under sun. "We are a hospital," he said, "not a stage." The boom mics kept inching. To the left, a comms hand signaled cutthroat at the tech. The main screen died again. The overflow screen insisted on staying alive. Green letters unbothered by preference. Alma stepped aside, letting the microphone stand alone. "Facts first," she said, and her voice rode clean on the room. Lang took the lectern. "I urge restraint," he said. "We don't adjudicate care with sound bites." "Then stop making them," someone called. Laughter snapped. Mean and bright. Lang's jaw muscle ticked once. He reset his tone. A child spoke. He said, "We are all grateful, but a single utterance does not undo a diagnosis. Outcomes fluctuate. I've authorized a complete review. You authorized a destruction," Alma said. He lifted a palm. "Magnanimous. Infection control. The specimen was non-diagnostic. Says you." A reporter muttered into his recorder. Lang angled to him without moving his feet. "Says the protocol." He returned to the room. "We can't let grief make science sloppy." In the second row, Lila felt her chest tighten the way windows do when a storm's pressure gets the math wrong. She stood before her fear had time to argue. "May I speak?" she asked. Lang's smile went white as a warning. "Ma'am, this isn't—" "Let her," Adrian said. The boom mic swung. 100 faces turned. Lila stepped onto the side riser because she refused the main one. The lights threw heat through her hoodie. "I held his hand," she said. fingers flexing once to keep from shaking. He said a word because someone finally listened. A murmur like electricity moved through the back rows. Lang's laugh came late and wrong. And what is Ms. Brooks's credential in auditory rehabilitation? Breathing, she said. A reporter near the aisle whispered, "Okay, that's good," into his camera. Lang pushed on. Compassion is admirable. It is not methodology. Methodology destroyed the object, Alma said, pleasant as iced tea. Lang tapped the lectern lightly, a gavel only he could hear. "If you wish to litigate," he said to Adrian, "we will oblige, but not in a lobby." A feedback wail broke from the speakers, thin at first, then thick, a wire sawing the room. Everyone winced. The tech threw a fader and slapped a mute button. The fountain filled the gap with its own patient hiss. Water finding gravity like truth finds microphones. Maya's shoulder touched Lila's sleeve. "One more," she whispered. Lila glanced. Maya held a second drive between index and thumb, as if offering a coin to a ferryman. "Backup of the backup," Maya said. Alma caught it, slid it into her inside pocket, tapped it once like a heart, and returned to stillness. A reporter stood. "Dr. Lang, did you instruct staff to maintain a diagnosis for grant eligibility?" Lang's smile didn't move, but the skin next to his eye did. "We use consistent language for continuity. Funding cycles are realities. They don't direct care." "What directs care?" Leela asked. Lang turned fully to her now. "Evidence," he said, "not sentiment." She stepped closer to the edge of the riser. "Then stop throwing evidence away." The room held its breath. On the edge of the crowd, Pike stood by a pillar, hands crossed over his radio, eyes on Lang's mouth, not his words. A security guard at Lang's shoulder lifted a finger to his earpiece, listening to someone who thought distance made them safe. Alma took the mic. "For me it's simple," she said. "Ling Zhou, Arshasut, 13 authorized. Ling Zhou, Arshawu, 01 disposed. Copies stamped at 01. Surar, chain documented now." She nodded toward Pike. "Witness present." Lang's eyes flickered there and back. He softened again. "The way bullies do. When they meet a wall they can't push. Let's step away from theatrics," he said. "We'll reconvene with stakeholders." "Patients are the stakeholders," Maya said, low but wired. The mic didn't catch it. The crowd did. A young father near the back raised a kid onto his hip. "My daughter was non-responsive last year." He called. "You maintained that." "She still can't get into speech." The comms woman moved toward him with a soothing hand. He edged away, voice fraying. "You told us to be grateful for consistency." Lubry. Lang's mouth opened. He recalibrated mid-breath. "Sir, I'm sorry. You're sorry you got caught," the father said. A rustle ran like wind through fall grass. The room had chosen a weather. Lang lifted both hands, palms pacifying. "We can't reduce complexity to slogans." "You turned it into one," Alma said. She clicked the laptop trackpad. On the overflow screen, the audit log froze. On VL01 again, a digital mirror he couldn't look away from. "Short words exist for a reason. Lawyers love them," Lang said. "Jurors understand them," she answered. "Reporters scribbled. Some didn't. Their pens hovered like birds that hadn't decided whether the field was safe." Lang tried a pivot. "We're grateful to Ms. Brooks for her concern," he said, a tone that labeled and filed. "We also remind all staff to follow scope. Interventions by untrained personnel. Get children water when a nurse is busy." Leela said. The room laughed, quick and mean, then hushed. Lang felt it land and stain. "Let's reset," he said, collecting professional warmth around his words. "Mr. Mercer, you're understandably emotional. You've trusted us for years. Trust us now." Adrian's fingers lifted the third USB in his pocket, as if it had weight he could practice. I did, he said. You broke it. Then let's repair it. Lang said. You can't repair a trust with the same hands that broke it. Adrian said. You wash. You step away. That line traveled faster than sound. Phones lifted. Tweets were born. The PR woman blinked like a deer under a stadium light. The boom mics drifted toward Lila again, then toward Maya, indecisive birds over a waking sea. Pike tapped his radio twice, an old, quiet code to test whether his voice still belonged to him. Alma breathed in, aimed, exhaled. One last clip, she said. She slid the second drive into the side of the local laptop. The overflow screen opened to the foyer angle again. This wasn't last night. It was dawn. The timestamp read 05. Wushaba. Linzhou. The frame caught Lang in his office doorway. Tea, off. Sleeves rolled. He spoke to someone just off-screen. Audio came at desk-level tinny. A mic that shouldn't have been on and was, hold, temporary. Lang said, board likes temporary. Kill restore. His voice soft, but surgical. And if the parent goes rogue, remind him he's not a doctor. The room became a throat. Then, the sound of a door clicking, a sigh that belonged to a very tired man, and a mutter not meant for light. Just shut that off, he said again, small this time, less command than wish. Silence. Then the flood. Reporter stood, hands shot, questions layered. Someone dropped a pen, and the sound cracked louder than it should. The fountain kept its hymn. The building tilted toward a verdict. Lang stepped back from the lectern, the length of one shoe, the most honest movement he'd made. He glanced at the ceiling camera, at the comms woman's white face, at Pike's square stance, at Maya's stillness, at Lila's calm. His smile frayed like a rope left in rain. Out of context, he said, but the words arrived dead. Alma closed her pad. We're done, she said. Not to him. She turned to Adrian. Vigo file, she said. He nodded. Slow, heavy, as if gravity had just returned after years in orbit. The hospital's comms team tried to retake the narrative, pushing a wireless mic into Lang's hand, like a life ring. He held it, then set it down carefully on the lectern as if it might explode. A reporter elbowed to the front. Ms. Brooks, did you practice medicine without a license? Lila looked at the sign over the donor wall. Compassion is our protocol. She let the room wait 1 second longer than it wanted. I practiced being human, she said. A woman near the stroller clapped once. Defiant. It caught more hands, then fewer, because fear still worked. The sound rose and fell like a small, stubborn tide. Lang leaned toward the comms woman. Schedule a statement at 4, he whispered. We pivot. We platform our outcomes. She didn't nod. She looked at her tablet and saw the metrics sliding like sand. She swallowed and began to type anyway. Pike moved along the wall, the way a guard moves when he's changing loyalties. At the exit, he brushed shoulders with Security Chief Fenwick, who read scenes like a weatherman reads air. Their eyes held. Everything all right? Fenwick asked. No, Pike said. Good show, though. Fenwick's mouth twitched. Gray isn't neutral. It's a color with work to do. We'll need a copy of that for the record, he said, eyes flicking to the drive. Already in motion, Pike said, near the lectern. A toddler burst into the kind of laughter that happens when microphones are too big and men are too serious. Noah had discovered the echo under the donor wall. He placed his open palm against the brass names and felt the vibration of his own small sound come back. His eyes widened like a door finally admitting a guest. Adrian watched him, unguarded. as if that echo could pay the debt of 10 years. For a second he forgot the room. He smiled like a father and not a headline. "Mr. Mercer," a reporter shouted, dragging him back. "Will you sue?" He looked from Noah to Lila to Alma to Maya. He didn't look at Lang. "We'll do something harder," he said. "We'll tell the truth until it costs." The room recorded that sentence 12 different ways. Some got it right. Some made it sharper. Some filed it under content. Lang adjusted his cuff just to touch something he could manage. "We have patience to see," he said, loud enough to be virtuous. Alma stepped from behind the lectern, collected the drives with motion like a magician pocketing knives, and handed one to Fenwick. "For chain," she said. He slipped it into an evidence sleeve, read the time off his watch, wrote it with a pen that scratched. "Received 14. Lingsea," he said. "Fenwick. S." He showed it to Pike. Pike initialed. Alma initialed. The small dance of responsibility completed itself on tile in front of cameras too bored to care. The crowd began to lose its single mind and take back its many. Reporters fed footage to vans. Parents took their kids home before nap became war. A janitor rolled a bin through the aisle, the wheels thudding over cable like quiet heartbeats. The fountain kept pouring, the sound now less hymn than metronome. Lila stepped down from the riser. Maya joined her, shoulders touching for a second. "You all right?" Maya asked. "No," Lila said, "but I am standing." "Stand a little longer," Maya said. "They're about to push back." On quay, a hospital official in a navy blazer approached with security. "Ms. Brooks," he said, "you'll need to come with us." "For what?" Alma asked, interposing before the sentence finished. "For questioning," he said. "Practice outside scope. We have a duty to report." Alma's smile could sharpen bread. "We have a DA waiting," she said. "Duty's a two-way street." The official gestured. 2 guards stepped. Pike did not. Fenwick did not. The air in the atrium thinned. People felt it without knowing. Noah turned his head, sensing new pressure, and the sound in his throat became small again. Lila lifted her chin. "It's okay," she told him. Then she put out her wrists, palms up, like someone asking for water. The holding cell hummed like a bad fluorescent. Paint flaked from the cinder blocks in thumbnail moons. Somewhere, a toilet coughed and refused to stop. Water as complaint, not comfort. Lila sat on a bench, bolted to the wall, wrists free now, palms still showing the red brace marks. A CO slid a paper tray through the slot sandwich. Apple, something that once knew coffee. The air smelled of bleach and the metallic edge of old anger. "You want your call?" he asked. "I used it," she said. He looked at the tray like a problem he could finally solve. "Eat?" he said. She lifted the cup. The liquid tasted like burnt plans. Across the corridor, a woman sang something low, maybe to herself, maybe to a kid she had to leave somewhere. The tune rose and fell, finding a note and losing it. Lila closed her eyes and saw her mother at a laundry sink, hands in cold water, lips moving with a hymn no church had taught her. "Miss Brooks," a voice said at the door. Alma stood at the glass with a public defender's pass on a lanyard and a private storm in her eyes. A deputy with a clipboard hovered. "Board, you're charged under Section 330. E." Alma said when the deputy stepped away. "Practicing without license. Misdemeanor." They wanted to feel like felony. "Bail. Nominal," Alma said. "If they don't change their minds, will they?" "Depends how scared they are," Alma said. "And who's calling them?" On quay, a phone rang at the desk. The deputy said, "Yes, sir, twice," then cupped the receiver and glared at nobody. "A printer spit forms with a machine's hurry. They'll schedule arraignment at 9, Alma said. "We'll be ready." Lila rubbed her thumb across the bench edge until her skin warmed. How's the boy? Sleeping, Alma said. He learned a new sound this afternoon. He laughed. That counts, Leela said. It all counts. Alma said. A clang 2 cells down shut a conversation like a door. The woman's song thinned and went away. Lila listened to the vacuum after sound. The way quiet in places like this isn't peace. It's negotiated. Anything you need? Alma asked. A shower, Leela said. And then, quieter, and a place to put my head after this. Alma didn't nod. She didn't offer platitudes. We'll find you a place, she said. Better than cots. The deputy returned with forms and the institutional glide of someone who misses nothing and cares less. Counsel, he said, need a signature. Alma signed. Chain for property, she asked. Logged personal effects, he said. Bag 429, locker C. She repeated the numbers. Repetition is a kind of chain. At the Mercer house, glass flashed like teeth. Paparazzi had multiplied at the gate. A delivery van idled too long across the street. Camera lenses growing like barnacles in the windshield. Adrian walked the length of his study twice without making it to the far wall. Emails multiplied. We value our relationship, but we must pause commitments. A text from the board chair. Damage control required. Step back from adversarial posture. A second, our liability carriers need reassurance. The phone buzzed in a steady, nervous prayer. He knocked his knuckles against the desk once. Then again, he'd built a life that made noise on command. Now the noise arrived freelance. Noah slept down the hall with a white noise machine set to ocean. The sound crawled under doors like fog. Adrian pressed his thumb to his right temple until the pain gave him somewhere to stand. His father had taught him how to look at numbers until they behaved. No one had taught him what to do when truth ruined a balance sheet. He opened his laptop. He searched for plausible statements, then closed the tab like he'd been caught stealing from himself. He dialed. Alma picked up on the first breath. I won't back off, he said. I didn't ask you to, she said. They want me to say, temporary, he said. Don't, she said. He watched the pool beyond the glass, light shivering under a thin wind. I'll lose friends, he said. You'll make better ones, she said. He laughed once. It sounded like a cough. You always have a line. I always have a plan, she said. Is there a difference? He asked. On good days, she said. No. He ended the call before he could say thank you in a way that would require more. In a bar office 3 blocks from the courthouse, a committee man with a tidy tie left a voicemail. Ms. Shaw, concerned colleagues flagged your conduct as combative, he said. We encourage collegiality. Optics matter. His sigh landed like a napkin on a spill. Return our call. On her end, Alma listened to the message twice and deleted it. She wrote, Call DA. File charge of evidence tampering. Attached chain. She printed a list and wrote names in the margin. Pike, Ortiz, Fenwick. She slid a spare pair of heels into her tote because long nights turn shoes into enemies. Her office window looked onto an alley where a drain sang high with runoff, city water doing its work. She shut off the light. The tune kept going. Hospital security sealed the atrium by 6. Stanchions sprouted. Signs appeared with the authority of font. Access restricted. Staff only. A masked crew took down screens and coiled the umbilical cables like snakes that could still bite. Pike sat at his station, jacket over the chair back. Isananina panemonitor. A message pulsed at the top right. Meeting 18. 30 HR. He checked the clock. 18. 19. And sipped coffee gone cold. Fenwick arrived on time. Clipboard under his arm. Face neutral. You called it, Pike said. Fenwick closed the door. The rubber sweep at the bottom made a hush. He set the clipboard down and slid an envelope across the desk, white, windowed, a throat in paper. Administrative leave, Fenwick said, pending investigation. For what? Pike asked, knowing. For making me choose, Fenwick said. They held each other's eyes. Somewhere on the monitor, a tail light blinked. On another, a janitor waved her mop like a flag. You can fight it, Fenwick said. Won't matter. What does? Pike asked. Exits. Fenwick said. He sat. What do you have? Pike lifted a drawer and removed a plastic envelope with a red zipper. Inside, smaller bags, nested like precise lies. He laid them out and read in a voice that did not need confirmation. Evidence E1. Policy. Header. Maintain diagnosis. Copy. Stampet seriua. Sirar. E2. Ledger pages with modifier MNT. Copy. Stamped. E3. Email print with header path. Copy. E4. Audit log capture. VL01 with time. Digital and print. E5. Video file. Foyer. Timestamped CO. Suri. 0602. Suri. Sure. Fenwick nodded. He pulled a roll of tamper seals from the drawer. The backing paper smelled vaguely of new bandages. We bag, he said. We sign. We log. We walk. HR. Pike asked. They can wait, Fenwick said. He wrote the case title in block letters on the first bag. State v. Langidel. Preliminary evidence. He slid E1 inside, forced the zipper, pressed a seal across the top. He signed across the edge of plastic and adhesive so any lift would scream, S. Fenwick. He read. He handed the pen over. Pike signed P. Pike. Letters not as neat as usual. He felt his badge press into his chest where the lanyard lay. He didn't touch it. He wouldn't let it say goodbye first. Shaba. 33, he wrote on the custody form, the ink blotting in one corner from the weight of his hand. He read aloud for the room and the recorder he had turned on without asking. Custody. Pike to Fenwick. Location. SA Security Office. Witness present. None. Body cam active. He clicked the body cam twice. The beep sounded like a microwave agreeing to heat water for tea. It would do. They repeated the small ritual 4 more times. Seal. Sign. Read. Seal. Sign. Read. Paper accumulated, and with it, a gravity that replaced faith for men like them. You know this ends me, Pike said quietly, not for pity. I had an end, Fenwick said. It was quiet and forgettable. It can share. They zipped the last bag. Fenwick put them into a gray tote with an evidence label and lifted it to his hip. The tote's handle cut his palm. He didn't adjust. Let's go, he said. DA's office, Pike asked. Chain starts with transport. Fenwick said. Ends with court. In between, only doors. They stepped into the corridor, where taped arrows told visitors where to find their better futures. The floors had been buffed to a shine so bright it looked wet. The smell of wax climbed into their noses and parked there. They crossed the atrium. The fountain had been throttled to night mode, a thin line instead of a sheet. The sound changed pitch. Pike glanced up at the donor wall. Names gleamed and swallowed light. At the automatic doors, a guard Pike had trained stepped forward, hand on the radio he'd taught him to use. Captain, the kid said to Fenwick. Or say hold. Who's? Fenwick asked. Admin, the kid said. And Lang. Fenwick shifted the tote. The seals crackled. We're not furniture, he said. We move. The kid looked past them, like a child, hoping a parent would appear with the rule book. No parent came. Pike made a choice for him. Walk with us, Pike said. Make yourself a witness. The kid swallowed. Yes. Seer, he said, terrified of both answers. Outside. Cold hit their faces like a simple truth. Sirens moaned somewhere too far away to help. The sun had fallen behind the garages. Streetlights bled white. They reached the curb. A black SUV with private plates idled, exhaust fogging the rear. A figure stepped from the passenger side, coat too good for the temperature. Lang. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. That tote belongs to the hospital, he said. Fenwick kept walking. Chain of custody belongs to the court, Captain, Lang said, silk frayed at the edges. Stop. Pike shifted the tote to his own hip, the weight sliding like an argument. No, he said. Lang took one step onto the curb. You're done here, he said. Pike nodded once. Then let me finish. From far down the drive, a siren finally turned onto their street. Blue washed the building front, then white, then blue again. The DA's investigator stepped from an unmarked sedan and held up a plastic wallet badge, like an answer to a different question. Evidence pickup, she said. Zeitur receipt ready. Lang smiled with only his bottom lip. You'll need a court order. The investigator flipped a page. Signed 15 minutes ago, she said. Judge R. Torres. She read the number like a hymn. Warrant 25 to 111. Fenwick handed over the tote. The investigator checked each seal like a parent checks the fever under a child's skin. She read the times. She wrote them again. Chain acknowledged. She said, custody. SA security to DA Special Investigations. Shaba. Sishaluk. Make a copy, Lang said, already losing the tense. You'll get one, she said. She slid the tote into the trunk, snapped the latch, and wrote the trunk seal number on the form while the body cam watched. The cold made her breath visible. It made everyone honest. The SUV door thunked closed like a gavel. The investigator drove away without hurry. Lang stared at the two men. He could have shouted. He didn't. He reached into his pocket, produced two white envelopes, and handed them with surgical neatness. Pike, he said, terminate, effective immediately. He turned to Fenwick. Administrative suspension. Pike took his, pocketed it without looking. Fenwick didn't take his at all. Lang placed it on the air. You'll regret this, Lang said. We already don't. Pike said. Lang's smile lifted, then lowered. We'll see, he said, and stepped back into the warmth of his car like a man choosing a smaller world. Behind them, a chant built near the corner, messy, brave, human, let her speak. It arrived clumsy and landed clean. Cold made the voices sound truer. In the cell, Lila lay on her side, eyes open, listening to pipes. Each knock rose through concrete like a coded message. She pictured a tote with red seals and a trunk snapping shut. She pictured a boy pressing his hand to brass and hearing himself return. Water dripped somewhere she couldn't see. It sounded like a clock that refused to count down. The courthouse smelled of wax and paper, a place that tried to disguise time with polish. Fluorescent light hummed overhead, vibrating like nervous thought. The morning outside had been cold and white. Inside, heat collected low, heavy on the air. Alma arrived first, a folder pressed flat against her chest. Jaw set to war. Fenwick and Pike followed, plain clothes now, both carrying the weight of sleepless nights instead of weapon. The gray tote rested on the table before the clerk, its red seals unbroken, bright as blood against neutral walls. Chain of custody log, complete and continuous, Fenwick said, his voice the practiced calm of an officer swearing on the record. From hospital security to DA special investigations. Shaba, 46, yesterday. Seals verified this morning. Lingzhou, Lingba. The clerk looked up from her monitor, eyes dull with bureaucracy. You'll need to sign in each bag. Separately, she said. Already done, Pike replied, sliding forward a paper 5 rows. 5 signatures, 5 timestamps in careful ink. Alma placed her hand on the tote. "We move this straight to the lab," she said. "Chain must remain sealed until analysis." "No the tours." The clerk frowned. "Orders say review before logging." "Override." Alma said. "Judge Torres's warrant, page 4. The clerk skimmed, blinked, then stamped the form without another word. The sound of rubber on paper echoed like a quiet verdict. At the forensic lab, light pooled blue-white over steel counters. The analyst moved like someone allergic to error. Her gloves whispered as she handled each seal, photographing angles, measuring tape positions, recording in low voice for the camera. "E1 through E5 confirmed intact," she said, proceeding to verification. The evidence bags looked oddly human under the bright light, wrinkled, scarred, holding secrets they hadn't chosen. Alma, Pike, and Fenwick watched from behind the glass. Adrian stood beside them, face hollowed by days of silence. He looked like a man learning to breathe without wealth for the first time. Shu unsealed the first bag. Inside, the printed memo, faint creases at its edges. The words still brutal. "Maintain diagnosis for continued funding approval." She adjusted the microscope camera. "Fiber and ink, consistent with hospital's administrative printer stock," she murmured. "No anomalies." Fenwick exhaled. "They'll claim forgery. Then they'll lose." Alma said. "The next bag." The ledger pages, each line like a heartbeat gone wrong. Amounts, codes, initials, a steady income built on someone's silence. Adrian's hand tightened around the railing. "That's my account," he said quietly. "They used my son's name as cover for their funding renewal." Pike looked at him. "You ready to make that statement on record?" Adrian nodded once, the kind of nod that costs blood. Shu moved on. The USB drives gleamed under the lamp. She slotted the first into the air-gapped computer. Isolation, running like a moat around truth. The screen flickered, then filled with lines of code, each labeled hash, matched against the record. "All hashes confirm," she said. "No modification. File integrity at 100%. The video played again, Lang's voice. The quiet, "Hold temporary. Kill restore." The audio hissed under the speakers. Low, venomous. This time, there was no crowd, only the cold light, the smell of ethanol, and the sound of something enormous beginning to collapse. Alma straightened. "We file indictments before noon." News broke before lunch. Breaking. Hospital officials under investigation for fraud. Evidence tampering. Screens in diners. Phones in pockets. Coffee shop TVs. All carried Lang's photo beside the headline. His smile had aged 10 years in one still frame. Reporters swarmed the courthouse steps, shouting questions that melted together like rain. The city, for once, wanted blood but called it justice. Lang sat in his office with the blinds half closed, the light slicing him into neat compartments. His phone blinked with unread messages. Board members, lawyers, investors. He ignored them. Instead, he looked at a framed photo on the desk, himself at a ribbon cutting, hand on Noah's shoulder, smiling for donors. He turned the frame face down. The door opened. The comms woman entered. Pale, eyes red. "They filed charges," she said. Lang smiled, thin and humorless. "Of course they have. They're naming you personally, not the hospital." "Of course they are," he said again. "You should leave the city," she whispered. "Before the arrest order goes public." He studied hair. "And where would I go?" She didn't answer. He opened his drawer, removed his access badge, and placed it neatly on the table. "I built this place," he said, "stone by stone, line by line. And you sold it," she said softly. He looked at her then, not as an employee, but as a mirror. "Everyone sells something," he said. "Not her." she said, and left the badge where it lay. Lung sat back. The silence grew teeth. Outside, sirens drifted closer. At the courthouse steps, Leela stood beside Alma. Her coat was borrowed. Her wrists were free. She had not slept. The crowd pressed forward with microphones and phones raised high. "Ms. Brooks," one reporter shouted, "how does it feel to be vindicated?" She looked at the woman blankly. "This isn't vindication," she said. "It's repair." Another asked, "What do you want now?" Lila glanced at Adrian, who stood behind her, and then at the courthouse door. "For it to mean something," she said. Inside, the DA's office buzzed like a hive. Assistant prosecutors handled copies of the evidence, stamping, logging, sealing again. The word chain had become sacred. Every signature another rung toward truth. Alma briefed the lead prosecutor, her tone clipped but steady. Charges: fraud, conspiracy, medical negligence, evidence tampering, obstruction. Primary defendant: Victor Lang. Secondary: 2 board members, chief financial officer, internal review officer. Witnesses: the prosecutor asked. Brooks, Mercer, Ortiz, Pike, Fenwick. Alma said, "Already." The prosecutor tapped his pen. "It's more than a case," he said. "It's a mirror." "Then make them look," Alma said. By evening, the sun lowered like a wound over the city. Adrian drove alone to the hospital gates. Reporters shouted. Flashes burst like lightning, but he didn't stop. Inside, the fountain still ran, the water clear again after days of dirt and debris. It whispered like something forgiving, or maybe warning. He walked through the lobby where the donor wall glowed. Someone had removed Lang's name. The brass plate was gone, leaving 4 holes in the marble, small and raw. He reached out, touched the empty space, and felt how cold truth could be when it finally stood naked. Maya appeared from the side hallway, her lab coat wrinkled, eyes tired. "They're saying you'll buy the hospital," she said. "I'm saying I won't," Adrian replied. "No one should own healing." She smiled. "Fint. That's a start." They walked past a waiting area where the televisions were muted. The news ticker scrolled below silent mouths. "Arrest imminent, Lang under federal investigation." "Where's Lila?" Adrian asked. "Visiting the ward," Maya said. "The kids wanted to meet the woman who made the doctor listen." He nodded once. "I'll find her. Upstairs." The pediatric wing smelled of soap and crayons. Lila knelt beside a boy, building towers of plastic blocks. Noah sat next to her, hands clumsy but steady, stacking blue on yellow. When the tower wobbled, he laughed a small, astonished sound. Lila laughed, too. "Careful," she said. "You're aiming too high." He looked up at her. "That's what Dad says." She smiled. "He's learning." The nurse at the door wiped her eyes with a sleeve. Reporters had tried to enter earlier, but the hospital staff finally, decisively had said no. Outside the window, the fountain shimmered in the dark, its rhythm constant. For the first time in years, the sound filled the building without fear. At 8:03 p.m., Victor Lang was arrested in his office. The footage looped on every network, the white cuffs, the slow walk down the corridor, the cameras flashing, the words, "Doctor." Lang declined to comment. The elevator doors closed on his face like a final curtain. Across town, Pike watched from a diner, coffee cooling between his hands. Fenwick sat beside him, eyes on the muted TV. "Ends here?" Pike asked. "No," Fenwick said. "Ends when the next one doesn't start." Pike nodded. Slow, almost a prayer. Outside, rain began thin, persistent. It tapped against the window in a rhythm that matched the fountain's pulse miles away. In her small apartment, Lila opened the window. The city smelled of wet iron and exhaust, of something clean trying to return. She held a folded paper crane, one she'd kept through all of it. Its wings were creased, edges soft from touch. She set it on the sill. Below, sirens wailed once, then faded. Somewhere, a child's laughter cut through the noise. Leela smiled. Barely. For the first time, the quiet didn't feel empty. It felt earned. The city woke to rain a thin, silver curtain that blurred edges and quieted sirens. For once, no one seemed in a rush. The morning news ran still images. A courthouse seal. An empty podium. The caption Lang to be held without bail, pending federal review. Beneath the text scrolled another line. Slower. Almost tender. The boy who once lived in silence can now hear. In the small hospital garden, the fountain pulsed against the gray sky. Drops of rain merged with the steady stream until the water itself seemed unsure which sound belonged to which. Lila stood beneath the awning, paper cup steaming between her palms. The world had gotten louder. Not kinder, but at least it was honest now. Behind her, the door clicked open. Adrian stepped out. Not yet today. Just a dark coat and the kind of exhaustion that doesn't wash off. You've been out here since 6, he said. She smiled faintly. Old habits. Morning quiet helps me think. There's not much quiet left, he said, looking toward the fountain. There's enough, she replied. You just have to listen past the noise. They stood for a while without speaking. Somewhere, a nurse laughed through an open window. Somewhere else, a monitor beeped. Life. Uncontained. Adrian finally said, the foundation paperwork went through. We named it the Listening Project. First clinics open next spring. Lila turned to him. That fast? I learned not to wait for permission, he said. A small smile tugged at her lips. Good. The world doesn't hand it out easy. He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. This is for you. She hesitated before taking it. Inside, a formal offer, director of community outreach, a salary she'd never dreamed of, and underlined words in his handwriting. No one cleans this time. You lead. Lila folded the paper carefully, as if it might bruise. I don't have a degree. You have proof, he said. And heart. The rest we can teach. People will talk, she said. Let them, he answered. They already have. A bead of rain hit the brim of her cup, and she looked at him sideways. You really think people can change? He met her gaze. I'm trying to. That landed somewhere neither of them could name. For a moment, the rain filled the silence between them, soft and relentless. By noon, the hospital cafeteria had transformed into a press room. Not for scandal this time. But renewal. Cameras pointed at a new banner. We will listen. Maya adjusted her badge, hair still damp from the rain, and waved Lila over. They're expecting you at the front, Maya said. The board insisted. Board? Leela asked. You're on it now, Maya said, grinning. You didn't read the fine print, did you? Leela blinked, half laughing. I'm still getting used to reading my own name in print. Maya squeezed her shoulder. You earned every letter. Adrian stepped up to the podium. His voice came steady but quieter than before, as if he'd learned that volume isn't authority. When my son's voice returned, I thought the miracle was sound, he said. But it wasn't. The miracle was that someone cared enough to see what all of us missed. Reporters leaned in. Pompoised. Money, he continued, can build walls that look like protection but are really prisons. Today, we start tearing one down. He gestured toward Lila. She froze, the way people do when life offers them a stage they never wanted, but maybe deserve. The lights caught the raindrops in her hair like tiny stars. I'm not good with speeches, she said into the mic, voice trembling at first, then warming. I'm not a doctor or a lawyer. I'm someone who saw a child hurting and couldn't ignore it. That's all. This started with listening. The room went still. We think miracles are about light, she said, but sometimes they begin in silence, the kind that forces you to notice. Adrian's hands tightened on the podium edge, eyes bright. Maya wiped hers quickly. Pike, standing at the back with Fenwick, gave a slow, single clap that spread through the crowd like a tide. When it quieted again, a child's laugh echoed from the hallway. Noah burst through the door, escorted by a nurse. His hair was messy, his eyes wide. "Dad," he called out, clear as bells. Every head turned, every lens found him. Adrian crouched down, arms open. "Hey, champ." Noah pointed toward Lila. "She helped me here." Lila's throat tightened. "You helped yourself," she said softly. The boy tilted his head, listening to something only he could hear. "Rain," he whispered. "It's talking." Lila smiled. "What's it saying?" He frowned, searching for words, then said, "Keep going." The crowd laughed gently, but Lila's eyes stung. Out of the mouths of children, truth, unpolished and whole. Later that evening, the halls emptied again. The last of the reporters left. The custodians mopped, humming along with the radio. Maya packed up her files. Fenwick handed Pike a folded letter of reinstatement. The hospital, once sterile with secrets, now hummed like something alive. In the courtyard, the fountain lights shimmered blue. Lila sat on a bench, watching ripples distort her reflection. Rain had stopped, but drops from the trees kept falling like stubborn memories. Adrian walked over with 2 mugs of tea. "One for peace," he said, handing her one for staying awake. "Which is which?" she asked. "Depends on the sip." She took a drink. The steam curled like quiet breath. "You know," she said, "when they first took me away, I thought it was over. I thought—" Silence won again. He shook his head. "Silence never wins. It just waits. Then maybe we stop giving it places to hide," she said. He looked at her, at the way she sat unguarded in the cold. "You should get some rest." "Soon," she said. "I like the sound right now." He listened. Wind in the trees. Distant trafic. A laugh from somewhere above. For the first time, he didn't try to fill it with words. The next morning, the newsfeed carried one last image. Victor Lang, escorted from the courthouse in shackles, head lowered. "Face unriadable." The caption below read, "Former hospital director sentenced pending appeal." The article below that showed another photo, Lila, smiling beside Noah under the banner "We Will Listen." 2 sides of the same story, one finished, one beginning. Weeks passed. Spring came early. The Foundation's first clinic opened in a renovated community center downtown. Children played near murals of bright ears painted by local artists. A brass plaque at the entrance read, "Dedicated to every voice once unheard." Inside, Lila walked through the corridor, clipboard in hand. Volunteers moved with practiced energy. Pike handled logistics. Maya ran medical coordination. Adrian oversaw funding from the sidelines, determined not to become the story again. "Still feels unreal," Maya said as they stood in the doorway, watching families fill the lobby. "It's supposed to," Leela said. "Real things take longer to believe." A group of kids ran past, laughing so loudly it made the windows shake. The sound hit Lila's chest and stayed there, like a second heartbeat. She stepped outside. The sky had cleared, blue, so clean it hurt to look at. Across the street, a vendor sold coffee from a cart, steam curling upward like offerings. She bought one, tipped too much, and sat on the steps, When she unfolded the napkin that came with her cup, she found words scrawled in pencil. Grace listens longer than guilt. She didn't know who wrote it, but she smiled anyway. Maybe it was meant for her. Maybe for anyone willing to hear. Behind her, the clinic door opened. Noah ran out, a paper crane in hand. "I made this," he said proudly. "It's for the fountain." She took it gently. "Then let's set it free." They walked together to the plaza, where a small fountain mirrored the one from the hospital, same curve of stone, same quiet pulse. Lila placed the crane on the water. It floated, tilted, and began to spin slowly. "What's it doing?" Noah asked. "Listening," she said, "to everything we can't yet understand." The boy leaned against her arm, small hand gripping hers. The fountain kept flowing. Rain from the night before had filled it higher than usual, enough to make the paper bird drift toward the edge, catch the current, and vanish down the drain, carried somewhere unseen but not lost. Leela watched until it disappeared, then whispered, "Keep going." The sound of water answered back. In the end, this story isn't just about justice, it's about listening. It reminds us that silence, when born from fear, becomes a cage, but when we learn to listen to ourselves, to others, to the quiet truths buried under noise, we start to heal what was once broken. Lila's courage shows that doing the right thing often means standing alone first, before others find their voice. Adrian's change reminds us that power means nothing if it's not used to protect the vulnerable, and through them, we're reminded of a simple truth. Decency doesn't shout, it endures. In a world where injustice hides behind policies and polished smiles, courage sometimes looks like a whisper that refuses to fade. Real gold doesn't fear the fire, and neither does integrity. Each of us will face moments when it's easier to stay silent to keep the peace, to protect comfort, but the cost of silence is often our own peace of mind. When we choose to speak, even trembling, we break the cycle that keeps others small. We reclaim dignity not as a privilege, but as a birthright. So tonight, if this story moved you, if it stirred a memory or a quiet question, share it. Tell us what you heard between the lines. Leave a comment, hit the like button, and subscribe for more stories that dig beneath the surface and into the heart of what makes us human. May you find peace in the kind of truth that doesn't shout, the kind that hums softly, steady, like rain on the window after a long storm. Here's to calm after chaos, and to the courage it takes to listen.